It's 6:02. Let's go ahead and get started. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, cool.
We can jump straight away in. What's up, guys? Appreciate everybody being here. I know everybody could be doing anything, hanging out, watching TikToks, sleeping, any of the above. But anyway, excited to chat with you guys. I also find bookkeeping pretty boring myself, just as a disclaimer. But the goal would be, if it has to be done, to try to make it as painless as possible. Because bookkeeping does fit into a category for me that I would say is a necessary evil, something that we can't avoid or outrun or not do somewhat well, or we could end up in jail or pay a lot of penalties and just not worth it. But if it's done well, there's some benefits like tax write-offs and breaks and deductions and not having it be so terrible. So anyway, we could just jump in. Few things that I always like to just kick off with on these, just so I could gauge the audience. And Alex, maybe you could just check the Facebook group or chat if there's anything different than anything that's going to be on here. But I'll do a quick intro in a sec, short and sweet. I just want to make sure we jump into the stuff that I think can actually help you guys. But real quick, if you wouldn't mind just dropping in the chat just answering these questions, how many units or properties you have, or if you're a flipper, volume, or if you're a broker, volume, and if you have a bookkeeper or if you do it yourself. Let's do this. And if you do it yourself or have a bookkeeper, if you use QuickBooks or not. I'll put my answers in the chat as well. Okay, cool, Carrie. So let me make sure I can remember how many units. Bookkeeper, QBO, QuickBooks Online. All right. Not all at once now. We don't need to be shy. Just messing around. All good either way, but sometimes I can tailor it. Cool. Thank you, Alex, as well. And if there's anything on the Facebook, feel free to call it out, Alex. If not, we can just roll with this. Okay.
Yeah, you can roll with it. Yeah. I don't, might be a little early. People might be like rolling in kind of late. So,
No worries. No worries. I get it. So, quick backstory. Who am I, other than just some weirdo on the internet? I am a real estate investor first and foremost. Okay. Before we talk about any bookkeeping stuff, I have 15 units myself, mix of Airbnbs, midterm rentals, and long-term rentals. And yeah, that part's cool. I was more into that than I was the bookkeeping. The bookkeeping was always a pain in my neck and something that caused some problems. But anyway, still have my portfolio, still enjoy investing, and still always like tinkering and making improvements on my properties. Little fun backstory, more or less. I grew up in New York, but now I spend 6 months a year in Medellin, Colombia, and then 6 months a year in New York. The months that I'm in New York, I play a lot of golf tournaments, like a golf addict, I guess you could say. Better than drugs, but maybe not that much better because it does take a lot of time and you can drive yourself insane if there's any golfers watching this. But anyway, that's the long and short of me. Real estate investor first and foremost. Now, I do half the year here and half the year in New York. And when I'm in New York, I love to play golf tournaments. So if you're ever in New York or Medellin, hit me up. We could golf, talk shop, get some write-offs in the books. Anyway, okay. So I didn't have a good picture of myself, like crying or just looking depressed. So I don't know. I could just verbalize this one. But another fun fact is in 2021, I overpaid my taxes by $26,000. Not fun. And I found out about it about a year and a half ago when I changed my bookkeeper and accountant. I'd been changing a bunch, but finally had one that came along and said, "Hey, why didn't you categorize all these expenses and you had all this revenue and you might be able to get some money back?" One little fun fact though, guys, if you do ever deal with the IRS, it's better to owe them money than them owe you money because they have not paid the $26,000 back and we are on our third refile. So good to know. If you can avoid that, I definitely recommend it. So we're not going to do slides if we can maybe have it be a little more interactive and less boring. But what I'm going to do is like a live demo of just how I do my books every month and what my workflow looks like, and also give you guys some tools to go along with it. So first off, if anybody needs a P&L template, I'll also back out a little and just explain what a P&L is. A P&L stands for profit and loss. Sounds a little scary. It just basically says it's money coming and going out of your business so you can know every month or every year how much money you're making or losing. Seems important, but if they taught it in high school or college, I might have missed it. I don't know about you guys. So anyway, this is what it looks like. If you have, let's say, one, two, three properties and you want to do the bookkeeping yourself, this is definitely a path you could follow. If you still have one, two, three units and you don't want to do it or just feel like you could do it wrong, you could still get help. But this is just a template that you could use or grab. If you're interested in it, just let me know. At the end, I give my email, my Facebook. If anyone wants to get in touch or has any questions, drop all that. But basically, the way that this works is on the top part here, you put in your income, which is revenue. If you have a rental, you put in the money that comes in. If you have Airbnb income or if you have a regular rental, you just pop that in there. And then on this part here, it's red because these are the expenses. You put your expenses. If you are one of the unlucky ones like myself on a few properties that has an HOA, that goes here, mortgage, utilities, all that fun stuff. And then it'll do a little built-in math, which I can just do here. If we'll say 500, let's say there's no mortgage. That means your gross profit is 500 bucks a month. Pretty good. And then you might want to take a distribution to yourself or put money into other accounts, but it'll do the math for you. And this is an easy way to just know where you're at and what you have going on. You could just pop it in and go from there. Also, there's some instructions here if anyone wants just how to use this, or if you have any questions, you could just book a time and I'll happy to answer any questions you have. That is a call with me. So this is what a P&L is. I just start with this because this is the backbone of measuring a lot of this stuff, all right? The next thing I just want to talk about real quick is a question I used to get a lot, not because I'm special in any way, but because I have real estate. And then when I was doing bookkeeping, people were curious about this. They'd say, John, how many bank accounts do you have? And how does money move in your business? How do you pay yourself? Those sorts of things. One of those questions, again, that if they taught it in high school or college, I never got it. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. Maybe I was just partying too much, but who knows? Either or. Good to know it now. So the way that I set this up is for each property that is large enough, or each business entity, LLC, S corp, that sort of thing, I have a bank account. And then typically what I'll do is on the last Thursday of every month, I will take the excess amount over a certain amount and I'll put it into a business operating account. I leave, let's say, 3,000 in each of these accounts. That's to cover any pop-up expenses, or if, let's say, we didn't get a single booking for 2 or 3 months, we wouldn't have to dip into our own pocket. Okay. So I leave that amount in. Anything above 3,000, I take out on the last Thursday of the month and I move it into this account. So I clear the account, I sweep it out, and then from that more general account, I pay certain things. I pay for subscriptions that span across the business. I pay for employees or VAs or contractors. Sometimes I invest back into the business, or I'll invest in different things. And then sometimes I'll pay taxes from it. Sometimes I also pay taxes from the account level. Just depends on the structure in the business. So that's that. And then the last thing, doesn't matter if it's the last or the first, I'm not like a profit first believer, is I take an owner's draw to myself. And what that looks like is I just take the minimum I need to pay for my personal credit card, my rent, and if I need cash for anything or anything else that I would need to fund my personal lifestyle. And again, I do that on the last Thursday of every month. And it's just an easy way for me to know before I do any bookkeeping, before I have a bookkeeper, before I fill out, it's just an easy way for me to know, okay, we started the month with 3,000 in each account, 1,000. Okay. It's an easy way to know how you're doing, making or losing each month as you do this. So just a quick high level of how money moves for me. This isn't how you have to do it. This isn't what even maybe I recommend for everyone, but it's just how I do it. And it was a simple way for me to think about it when I heard so many different sort of conflicting or confusing things online. And I never heard anyone just explain how many bank accounts I had and how money moved. So anyway, any comments or questions on this before we go on to just the reports, which are also simple, but again, just building up to it. And guys, there's no dumb questions. No one ever taught me this, like I said, and I was curious about it for a long time. And so there's no dumb questions. If anyone
Are
has a
you
question, raise
are
your
you
hand.
recommending like one bank account per property? Is that just does that make it easier for us to keep our books?
I recommend it if the property is large enough. That's vague, but to me, a property that would be, let's say, over 75,000 in revenue for the year, I would probably have its own bank account just because there's a lot of transactions that should flow if there's that much revenue volume. There's also going to be a lot of expenses. And I just find it easier on a property that size to have a dedicated bank account, dedicated credit card, dedicated debit card, so that all the expenses are isolated for that. Because that's a decent amount of revenue. That's its own business for sure. If we're talking five single family homes that they rent for $1,000 a month, I would not have a bank account for each one of those. Probably be
Mm,
clustered into one. No matter how big or small the revenue of a separate entity is, those should all have separate bank accounts, just so that you're not commingling. And if you're going to have to file returns, you don't want to have to unwind stuff. So, good question. Does that make sense?
yeah, it does. That's because we just have one bank account. To be honest with you, it's an operational bank account. We did try the profit first thing, and what I found was I was pulling from like the bank accounts to try to grow the business. So that bank account always, I'd have five different bank accounts, and I'd have one operating expense, and all the other ones would eventually be zero, like towards the end of the year or whatever. I just wasn't disciplined enough to do it. I'm trying to get to it, but I don't know. I think I'm just trying to make it as easy for my bookkeeper as possible. The bookkeeper I was using, she's no, it's fine. We should be able to figure it out. But yeah,
Yeah, again, that's the great and terrible thing about this is that there is no one size fits all. So for me though, I maybe it's a Benjamin Franklin quote. If it's not, I just sound like a tool. But I like to do things the simplest way possible, but no simpler.
Mhm.
So for me, I just want to keep things super simple. But again, if we drop down too low as far as simplicity goes, we're missing numbers or reports aren't being generated, that won't work. So for me, I'm always trying to find that lowest denominator in any part of the business so that we can just be more efficient. So yeah, it has to be easy, but it has to give me what I need as well, which we'll talk about the next thing. But yeah, I hear you.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Any banks that you recommend? Like we use Relay, and I guess one of the issues is you could only have so many bank accounts per account or whatever it is.
I'm not an affiliate for any. I don't have any pros or cons or any. I People usually cringe when I tell them I actually bank with Wells Fargo. And they're like, "What are you doing?" I don't know. A bank's a bank.
Right.
Like as long as it somewhat works, it's fine. But I guess they all stink, but
Yeah.
they're all just serving their purpose. But yeah, I don't recommend any. I know we have a lot of clients that are on Relay
Yeah.
and they're not like drumming the Relay ban, but like they're not saying bad things either.
I guess that's the easy thing with Relay. I could open up a bank account in like a minute if I needed to. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So let's talk about P&L templates. So we showed this here. This is what having a P&L for one property looks like. So when I was trying to figure out how to not lose $26,000 again, I was like, what do I want in a bookkeeping solution? Okay. So it came down to three things for me, which were I wanted really good communication. I wanted good, simple reports that didn't require me to go into QuickBooks because it's clunky and annoying. And then I wanted it to be affordable. Seemed to be harder than I expected to find bookkeeping that had those three. For the most part, it was because I think bookkeepers a lot of time they suffer with the same challenge that like a contractor or cleaner runs into, which is they're solopreneurs. The more clients they get, the worse the service gets. So that's why those are tough to come by. People hold those close to the vest because why would I recommend something my service gets worse or the price goes up? And I think that happens a lot. And I think that's why communication dips. So there's a way that we avoid that. But anyway, regardless of that, you want to make sure that those things don't get interrupted as your bookkeeper grows. But back to the reports. So I at the beginning said I want a P&L weekly and monthly, and then I want a balance sheet monthly. Okay. So we first just started doing it this way and it worked, so we stuck with it, which is every week the bookkeeper exports a P&L from QuickBooks and loads it here. And then at the end of every month, they do the same thing. So I'll pull up a few views. I've manipulated them just slightly, just to hide a few like sensitive things and just some businesses that aren't maybe in use anymore. But these were live P&Ls. Okay. So what I like, and here's another maybe misconception, or just again, it depends on the situation, but I have my 15 units and I have two businesses all in one QuickBooks account. Sometimes people come to us and they say, "Hey, John, I have five QuickBooks accounts." That might be $500 in software costs when they could just be in one. That's something that I also like to mention to people. Again, depends on the situation. Happy to review it or answer any questions about that, or we could talk. But for me, I just have one QuickBooks account and we generate one report out of it. So the view is not too different than the one with just one property. It's the income or the revenue up top, and then everything below this is expenses. And you can see at the bottom then a spit out of revenue minus expenses. So you have your net income for each unit or business and then the total. Okay. And obviously it'll fluctuate. And some months you might have repairs or improvements, but you can get a really clean, quick snapshot view of what your numbers are. So my exact workflow for this, the reason this training is called Bookkeeping in 30 Minutes a Month, is because that's how long it actually takes me to do my books when I just do it in this view. So my exact workflow is I'll have this up on my screen. A bookkeeper will have the QuickBooks up on theirs. And then I will just go through each column, each business or each property, and I will just call out any expenses that don't make sense to me. So if there's an expense here, like marketing or advertising costs, which I don't recognize, what I would do is just call out, hey, D12, there's a charge for $450. What was that? On their screen sharing, they'll just click on that charge for QuickBooks. They'll see what makes it up, and then I'll see it too. And if I recognize it, cool. I just have a bad memory. I forgot about it. If I don't recognize it, what we do, and I'm a firm believer in this, is we keep a punch list, like a to-do list that comes from the P&L. The reason that I think P&Ls are useful and important to look at more than just not paying a lot in taxes is to be able to make decisions about the business. Realize, our utility bill was really high the last month. Maybe our cleaner isn't adjusting it back, or maybe we need to look at our smart thermostat to see how we can lower it. Or I thought we turned off that subscription. Or here's one that I found and always talk about is if someone charged you that they shouldn't. But anyway, I'll get to that. But we keep a punch list of things that we need to look into or investigate during or after the call. And then bookkeeper looks into it, or I look into it, or a VA looks into it, whoever, and then we move on. But for each column, I just hide it once we're done. And then when I get to the last one, we close out the books. And what I recommend is once the punch list is done, to send the books, send this P&L to an accountant or your accountant. Send it to them, and then they have the P&Ls on file for the whole month or the whole year rather. Because another thing that is like a core pillar of my and our beliefs is I don't want to pay an accountant to do bookkeeping. They're going to probably 5 or 7x the cost of what bookkeeping should be just because their dollar per hour is very high and they're probably going to outsource the work anyway. I actually recommend the opposite. When you have clean books, every client we've ever told to do this, myself included, when you have clean books and you're delivering this sort of on a platter to an accountant, ask the accountant actually for a discount. Say, hey, you have everything you need. We did all the reporting. You can definitely get discounts on your actual like tax filing work because they have everything they need. They just need to punch the numbers into the schedule. Accountants might be frustrated with if I'm saying that or annoyed at that, but usually not because they don't actually want to do bookkeeping themselves. They just have to because it's part of the return. So anyway, that's just a little tip that I recommend for everyone. If you do have P&Ls that get generated, to make sure that they are given to an accountant to actually look at instead of just filed away. Okay. So this is my workflow on this. I have another view that I use more now just because it's a little more detailed, but it's no more than just a few more pieces of information. And what that is the same deal. P&L gets generated, but what I like in this view is to see the current dollar amount. I can see, or the current month, I can see the past month, and then I can see the dollar change and the percentage change. And what I like about this view is it's really easy to spot stuff. So for example, freaking a good old HOAs. I actually don't even know what we get for 285 a month, but we pay the HOA 285. This month came in double. Why? We got double billed. We got auto charge and we made a single payment. We wouldn't have caught that. Okay. Maybe they would have given the money back, maybe not. But either or, I wouldn't have caught that if I didn't see a comparative view of what the amount was in June versus May. And it's just, again, a view that I like, and the process is the same, but I just scroll through these, I look at these. Another one, we pay all of our subscriptions at the business operating account level. I don't pay subscriptions at the property level. So this is a miscategorized transaction. Might not seem like much, but certain classes are taxed differently. So it's not just about being organized, but it's also about making sure that you're paying the right amount of tax or less tax than you could or should by having things categorized in a certain way. So it's the same deal. I'll go through this. Once we get to the bottom, everything makes sense. I just hide it and we get through each column. And then same deal. When we get to the end, if there is a punch list, we work on it, or my assistant will help with that as well, chase stuff down, reach out to people, cancel things. And then once it's fully reconciled, send it off to the accountant. We still do send at the end of the year a 12-month version of this to the accountant, just again, so it's more simple. It doesn't take a lot of work on our side, or if a bookkeeper is doing it, it might take 2 minutes. But again, it's going to save maybe hundreds or thousands of dollars in extra time that could be billed during tax time. The other thing, I don't know that you or they want to do a call during tax time to iron stuff out when if it's just presented in these numbers, they don't need to have a conversation. Maybe they're your friend, they just want to catch up with you, fine. But it shouldn't be billed hourly for stuff that is just teed up on a platter. And as far as the actual strategy goes, yeah, maybe that's billed per hour, maybe that's built into the cost. That is a great use of working with an accountant, understanding strategy and making sure that the way you're structuring things. But as far as just punching numbers in, it's not something that we typically want to pay a high dollarly hour rate for. A few other things I want to go through, guys, that I do at the end of the month, but any comments or questions on this, just as far as the P&L, the simple one, the one that has a few more numbers in it, how it might apply to you? Any
As,
comments,
as
questions?
as far as like categorizing the P&L, is this something customizable or is it something pretty basic and standard that most accountants want? And I guess I asked this question because one of the lines the bookkeeper that I'm with right now told me was, "Oh, I know exactly how your CPA likes it. I'm going to categorize it exactly how she likes it, so that way, whenever she files your taxes, it's just plug and play."
I'll say this, if there's a way that your accountant does like it or somehow makes their workflow easier, it would probably be very easy for any bookkeeper to fit into that because for most people, the categories are the same. There's rent, mortgage, there's principal, interest, tax, insurance, there's utilities, there's repairs, there's maintenance. There's not a ton of outside potential transactions for a real estate investor or category. So yeah, maybe an accountant has a way that they just line it up against the schedule that they input the numbers into, but it's not something that someone can't replicate very easily because they're very similar in general for certain groups of professions. Real estate investors and real estate professionals have very similar categories that just get bucketed. So yeah, they're similar, but some might be just easier for an accountant to like process or digest. But yeah, there's not like a set way, but there are very repetitive categories across industries. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do the way your system is. Currently, my system, the bookkeeper I was using, we'd meet up every 3 months, and she would send like a punch list that was like 300 lines long of what was this Amazon charge from December 27th? And I'm like, I have no idea what that $8 is. And so I do the fact that the reason why I'm switching to you is just I think it's going to be a whole lot easier for me to just go through it, whether it's once a week or once a month or whatever it is, just to get it in line. And the one thing I never heard of is actually sending the books over to my accountant every month and just giving it to them.
They should
so
have
that way they're
every
updated.
accountant. Everyone would be happier if the accountants had, and there's no reason they can't. If they had the P&Ls, everything they needed to file tax returns on January 1. The problem is the reason that they get busy and tax time sucks and you can't reach your accountant during tax time is because very few people do that. And then the first, not even the first, it's like the 80/20. It's like Christmas season for the malls. People wait till the last week, the last 2, 3 weeks. Hey, I need
Yeah,
to call my accountant. We got to
that's
sort
me.
through. You're not alone.
And I'm in October. Like I filed the extension and it's not even close.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's like I need accountability for. I'm not a bookkeeper by trade. I know this stuff. I could do it myself, but I still need to get a nudge from someone once a month to fill out my uncategorized transactions or to get on a call and poke through this stuff. Because when I was left to my own devices, I just say, hey, I'll focus on making more money. This stuff is just a waste of my time. And at the end of the year, I'll just push it through. And that's what led to paying 26,000 more than I should have. So, yeah, it's like a little bit of checks and balances that I wanted to just put on myself to make sure that nothing is getting, well, more expensive than it should be. But yeah, we have some people we work with, they want us to send them every 2 weeks a list of uncategorizable transactions. Some are monthly. I would say monthly should be the longest because if the list builds up crazy, it could require a whole day to go back through it. And if it's done bi-weekly or monthly, you'll probably remember most of the things without having to actually even pull stuff up. It just makes life a lot easier. So, yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
where frustration is with my bookkeeper is it's not her fault. It's just the fact that set it up to where I'm doing this every 3 months and I'm looking at this list like I freaking hate doing this. Like I have 300 items or whatever it is, just more focus on it. Another question I wanted to ask you is QuickBooks versus Stessa. I know there's like a constant like argument there, or people have prefer one over another. Will one work easier for you and your company over another?
I wish Stessa and QuickBooks would have a baby. That would be great, like a merger, because there's good and bad in both. Stessa is a lot more user friendly as far as it's simple, it's got a really nice interface, but it's harder for outside people to access things and generate certain reports. So, for that reason, it's not something that we recommend typically if people work with bookkeepers as they scale or have more units. QuickBooks, on the other hand, it's clunkier, it's a little less intuitive, but it's a gold standard. All the formats are accounting and bookkeeping native, and you can add people very quickly and easily. And a lot of bookkeepers and accountants know it. That's the other thing. Sometimes with softwares aside from QuickBooks, there's a smaller pool of people that can work on it because there's just not as many people that are trained on it because it's not as popular. Carrie, what about Zero? I'm actually not familiar with Zero. Never heard of it. But yeah, sorry. Yeah, if it works and you can generate reports and it's easy to categorize, that could definitely work. Yeah, like some people say, oh, like it doesn't matter the tool as long as you use it. That is true, but I don't really love that answer because it's like some tools are easier, better than some others for certain purposes. So I'm not even like a QuickBooks affiliate, but I do think that it is the standard for people that do have real estate portfolios and are like at a certain level. One other thing that I wanted to say about categorizing transactions, something that we're messing with, and some people do right now, we're just trying to figure out the best way to roll it out, is what I do is I don't want to do any categorizing at the end of the month. Like that is my mission, okay? If I'm doing something on my computer, whoever on the team, let's say it's me or my VA, let's say they buy something on Amazon for a property, in real time, what they're instructed to do is take a picture of that purchase and email it straight away to my bookkeeper. And then that way it's something less that I have to do at the end of the month. Or if it's a Target transaction or Home Depot, anything that gets like bulk ordered that you can't see, they send it to the bookkeeper. They say, hey, let's say inventory for property number 3. Cool. Then that does not need to be categorized at the end of the month. Or if I send a Venmo payment to a cleaner or a contractor, once I pay that, I screenshot it and I send it to my bookkeeper. Like again, I could do it in bulk at the end of the month, but I just like doing it in real time because it's fresh in my head and it's just part of my workflow. So that's another thing. And Alex, we could talk about that. Again, like we meet people where they're at, but that's just another option for people if they don't want to go through a spreadsheet or like a table at the end of the month and do categorizing.
I like that a lot because I think all of us who own short-term rentals will make 5, 6 trips to Home Depot every single day while we're out there. And you just forget. And I think sometimes I'm pulling up QuickBooks and the internet's not working right. And I just want to get out of there. And I'm like, I'll just scan the receipts at the end of the day and I completely forget it. But what I was doing like towards the end is RVA is I would just take a picture of the receipt and send it to her and I would say file it into this Google Drive. So
That's Amazing. That's all you need. Again, like that works great. If anyone on the call is wondering that, highly recommend that. And then you keep the receipt. You could just keep a folder in your phone or Google Drive, or if you get help, a VA or whatever, they can organize it for you. Yeah, that's an easy way to just not have to have a huge transaction list at the end of the month or a quarter. Good questions. Any other questions, guys, on this? I know, again, not the most fun topic, but try to make it simple and straightforward if we can.
For some of us that have virtual assistants, how do we incorporate that? I'm trying to get out of this process as much as possible. Can they meet up with your team if someone did decide to go with your services? And let's say, for example, they're the ones that meet up every 15 minutes, I don't know, 15, 30 minutes a week or whatever it is.
That's the best. Like the goal is, especially for people who don't like it or they don't want to do it, is to spend as little time on it as possible because it is not a revenue generating activity and it's not oftentimes a happiness generating activity. Just thought of that. But anyway, yeah, like for most clients that have VAs or bookkeepers, that was super cheesy. That's awesome. Is yeah, like the same way. If someone on your team buys something or they're closer to something in the day to day than you, like we encourage people's like team members and VAs to be the one sort of communicating back to the bookkeepers. And then as an owner, you can just get a report from that admin or an update from that admin, or they can be closer to it. It adds a layer of redundancy, which is nice because also then it's like if you don't know where a transaction happened or came from yourself, you have someone on your team that might or might not know as well. So yeah, like I said, in my workflow, like for my STR manager, anytime she buys something or like there's an expense that comes through, she is the one interacting with the bookkeeper to just make sure that that's squared away. The only transactions that I have to categorize if I don't do them in real time are Venmo transactions. That's it. Because I don't give my VA access to that. That's it. But yeah, I think having them communicate and having them be linked up is ideal. Yeah, highly recommend. Yeah. Any other questions on any of this before I go through the last things that I do at the end of the month before I move on to the new month? If not, all
None
good.
here.
Okay. So the last thing that I do at the end of the month is I fill out my net worth tracker. Maybe it's ego, maybe it's on the months that are hard. I heard some conversation before we got going here. Real estate is hard. Real estate has ups and downs, but it's like choppy in the short, but if you stretch that out over long periods of time, it goes up and to the right. It's just how it works. So what I do is I track my net worth every month. There's other reasons than ego because it's good to have this for lenders and for also selling properties. It's nice to have a consolidated view. Also, if you open up a lot of credit cards, you can track all of them here. I've had credit cards I forgot I opened and I wasn't keeping track of them. And I realized that it was in collections for like $12 charge. So try to avoid that. But yeah, the way that I do this is I just open up each one of my bank accounts, input the amount that's in the account, and then I input other things like stock or if you have any crypto, if you got any Trump coin, any Melania coin, whatever, Bitcoin, and then real estate values here. And then on the right side, my expenses or liabilities, outstanding things, any of my credit card debts, pay your credit cards, folks. And then I also have my real estate balances, whatever I owe on mortgages. And then at the bottom here, it spits out what the net worth is. And it's just cool to see. I'm not like a net worth goal setter. I'm more of a cash flow goal setter. That's just more like tactical. I can touch and feel it. But it is cool to see, okay, I can look back for the last 3 years now and see my net worth. If I was really even like more of a Google sheet spreadsheet nerd, I could probably come up with like a visual representation of that. I don't care enough about that to do that, but it is cool to just flip back through the tabs and see this. And then also, like I said, you can give it to lenders, you could track your credit cards, you could turn credit cards on or off and just see what's going on. And it's a good way to stay close to your numbers. It's that measurement management philosophy. If you're checking this once a month, there's very little chance that you're going to miss like a fraud charge or a random charge, or you'll just, when I go into the credit card transactions, I click through them and I just eyeball them in addition to getting the bookkeeper stuff. But I'm like, all right, I just want to give an extra layer of sort of review here. And then that's it. That's what I do at the end of each month. Once these are done, I just close it all out and go on to the next. And like I said, I use that every month. And yeah, that's my monthly review, guys. The bookkeeping part, like I said, if I did it myself or I work with a bookkeeper, it'd be the same process. Bookkeeping is extremely inexpensive. And if you guys do have any questions about what it looks like working with a bookkeeper, yes, we do help entry level investors up to typically up to 50 units if they need help with bookkeeping. We pride ourselves on being really affordable, but also focusing on communication and reporting and just going through the same workflow that I did. But yeah, guys, that is what I do and how I do it. And then if tax time, we talked about that. And if anyone has any questions, I'll drop. If anyone wants to ever catch up, just ask questions. I'll put a link to chat. That's Calendly for me personally. And then here's my email. And if you're on Facebook, feel free to friend me. And I told Alex that if anybody from his group or any of his friends come along, that there are some special things that I would make sure that we could offer for you folks or friends of Alex. So if you do end up becoming a client or interested in bookkeeping, again, I'm not a pushy person. If I think we can help, I could explain it to you. If I don't, I will point you in the right direction or just see if I can give you any advice. But again, if you do come from this call or Alex refers you, I'll extend some specials your way and we can see if we can help.
Is there a minimum that people have? For example, like I had a revenue manager on and everything he said was amazing, but then at the end when I had students try to sign up with him, he was like, "Oh, we need to have properties." Do you work with this very small investor that might like Carrie has one short-term rental and is looking to grow her portfolio up, getting her, she has a second one under contract now, but eventually like looking to grow. Do you have a minimum that they need to have?
Everyone needs, no, there's nothing like that. Personally believe that investors like 20 units are extremely underserved. It's like the mid-size or bigger bookkeeping and accounting firms, like they have minimums, they have setup fees for some things, and some things they just it's not worth their time. And for that reason, their minimums are usually way too high for anything that I could consider when I was first, second, fifth unit. It didn't make any sense to pay $800 a month when I had three properties to do bookkeeping. Like just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, we like for it could be as low as $250 a month. Or again, we work with people, but it's not we're here more like if someone comes on and they have very few properties and they want to add more, that is cool and that's great. But also just if people have a few properties, they're priced out of a lot of other solutions and we have a slightly different model so we can keep prices, I would say, as low as they can be and still pay our team, still make a little bit of money, help people and accommodate down to the smaller groups. Yeah. If anything, we qualify people out for having too many units, but yeah, we've never really had anyone tell us you're too expensive. Maybe we should, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna. But anyway, yeah, it can accommodate.
Yeah, I like the simplicity of everything. And then, like, I worked with my bookkeeper, and it's like I said, like, we message each other through email, and email's not the fastest communication. And the cool thing I like about your service is it seems like you're very responsive and it's simple, and we could meet up. That way, it's not like this huge task to do every 3 months, which is what I'm doing.
So I'll say this also, if anyone does want help with bookkeeping and you do decide you want us to be the one that helps you. Like, for example, I'm a believer, same day communication, minimum. Like, it should be within a few hours or minutes. Like, all of our team, like, they're taught if you see a message, acknowledge the message. I can't stand it when you message someone and they don't respond. They're like, yeah, I was working on it. It's, yeah, I didn't know that. So just let me know. And then let's set an expectation on timeline. So I tell people also if for whatever reason you message someone and you don't get a response within 24 hours, please come to me. I want to know those things because I'm neurotic about communication and just acknowledging messages and things like that. And yeah, it's your point, Alex. If someone wants a call with their bookkeeper, all of our bookkeepers have 15, 20-minute Calendly links that they keep open every day. If someone has a question, this is about your money, this is about your business, it's about being able to make decisions. Like there should be access to communication. I just couldn't stand when I'd ask my bookkeeper something on a Monday, I'd get an answer back on a Wednesday. It was wrong, and then I'd have to wait till Friday. This is the solution. When I was putting this together, I just wanted what I hoped for when I was first getting started. So Communication is big. Communication is as important as doing the books well, in my opinion. So, guys, I know it was a lot, but yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free, but appreciate you having me.
Yeah, what I'll do is I will send this replay out along with links to get a hold of you to book a call if anyone is interested in using some of your services for their bookkeeping.
Well, appreciate you guys. If anyone has any questions or needs anything, feel free. Or if you just want any of the tools that I showed, you could just message me on Facebook or send me an email. Happy to send you any of these. Or if you want to screenshot this, feel free. And yeah, there are a lot, especially before the off season starts. So if you send a message, it usually gets answered extremely quickly and we can go from there. But thanks, Alex. Really appreciate you having me on. Appreciate your audience. Appreciate your group.
Cool. Okay, guys. Thanks so much. I'll share the replay here to everyone that joined as well.
All right. Everybody have a good night. See you later.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
All right. Bye.